Drew here, and I have to admit, I think I spent most of the time after Mare of Easttown trying to figure out what I was misunderstanding or how the show was misleading me. Because if the answer is that the killer of Aaron was Billy, I feel like a lot of people are going to be disappointed by that because I feel like he's a really, really obvious option, and it seems like the undoing all over again, where the answer that anyone could have guessed a couple episodes ago might actually be the answer. But I have to trust that HBO wouldn't reveal this in the way that they did and that early in this episode. So, with that in mind, the question to me became, what am I misunderstanding and why am I misunderstanding it? So, I spent a lot of time analyzing this and I came to some conclusions. Now, this is a big gamble by HBO, I feel, because a lot of people might actually buy Billy is the killer, and therefore, they might not even come back next week. They might be like, I have the answer, and it's a very, very disappointing answer, and I'm done. But I think that they're trusting that the audience is going to hold off and give them a chance to tell the story the way that they want to tell it. We'll have to see how this goes for them, but I'm waiting with bated breath personally. But my big theory is, if you look at the way that this all played out, the conversation between John and Billy, where Billy seemingly confessed that he was the killer, what was actually said was John said, Mare knows about the family reunion. She's been asking Lori questions. What am I going to do? I need to hear you say it. And then Billy said it. I killed Aaron. And then John gives a breath of relief. So to me, this could be interpreted as an actual confession, as John coming to Billy and saying, you know what, I think there's evidence that you did this. Can you tell me the truth? But it could also be that actually John is getting Billy to take a hit for the group. And I think that that is the more likely theory. I think that there's some kind of group conspiracy going on here, and that John and Billy are involved. And I don't know who else is involved. Maybe throw in a Richard or a Dylan, who knows, but that somehow they know that the whole group is going to go down if someone doesn't take the fall for Aaron's murder, and they have decided amongst themselves, or John has decided, that it's going to be Billy. And if you look at it from that angle, then it makes sense why John is taking Billy out to fish and has brought a gun along, seemingly. It could be Billy had brought the gun along. Some people thought that Billy's reaction when he found the gun in the tackle box as they were going fishing was not surprised, that he was just seeing the gun, noting it, and putting it in the back of the truck. But I think he definitely looked surprised and gave a look towards the house of like, oh, what's going on? And I think that clearly what the plan is John doesn't trust Billy to confess, doesn't trust him to stick to whatever story he's given him when he goes to confess to the police. And he went to Lori this episode, told her that Billy had confessed, so that when she goes to Mare and tells her, Mare won't think, oh, John is the one who was turning his brother in. It makes more sense for Lori to do it. And he even told Lori not to tell anyone, probably suspecting that she wouldn't be able to keep quiet. So that's what I think is going on. I don't know that it really clears that much up, but I do think it makes sense that it's not actually just Billy going in by himself. And I think that John is going to probably try to kill Billy, and then he can claim self-defense and claim that Billy was the one who killed Aaron, and then the whole group or the conspiracy are safe. Now, it could just be John, but the thought that has entered my head is, what could be possibly in that photo that that Mare's boss was looking at the end of the episode? And I had to rule a couple of things out right away, because it's like, if it's just a picture of Kenny and Aaron, that doesn't mean anything. If it's a picture of Dylan and Aaron, that doesn't mean anything. If it's a picture of John and Aaron, doesn't necessarily mean anything, because they had a family reunion, so it doesn't really mean anything. And why would this cause Mare's boss to tell her to stop and not to proceed? Unless, and this is what I've come to conclude, it's possibly a picture of John and Billy with the man who had kidnapped the girls, with Potts. And in that case, this would cause the sheriff to realize that there is some kind of conspiracy and that is what's going on. So that's my big theory, is that Potts was involved with John and Billy somehow, and that they had been all kidnapping these girls together for some evil purpose, and that is why Billy was going to confess, to take a hit for the team. And then the sheriff saw this picture and realized that there was some kind of conspiracy going on, and that Mare was going into a situation where both individuals might be against her. And after what happened last time to Zabel, I feel like he's a little bit concerned that she won't come out alive. I do think it's really, really impressive that in a show that we've all spent so much time thinking about the mysteries, that I feel like they have played fair, and I think they still managed to obfuscate what the ultimate solution is, which is an impressive feat. We'll see how I feel about it when it's all said and done. But it's impressive that they went out and they gave us all the clues, I think, and we still don't know what the ultimate answer is. Now, I think it's interesting that the tension at the end of this episode, because I was really, really like, I can't believe they did that when the episode ended. I felt very, very frustrated by the cliffhanger. I really just wanted to know what happened next. But the majority of the tension, I feel like, is coming from a desire to know what happens next and who was ultimately responsible for Aaron's death. And to a certain extent, like as a cliffhanger, it wasn't the most shocking or suspenseful cliffhanger, because you've just got Mare going into this situation where it seems like maybe John is going to kill Billy or Billy is going to kill John. It's really not, it doesn't get a lot more, clear than that what's going to happen next. And they've really managed to hide in the teaser for next week what's going to happen in this scene. It could be a very, very intense and interesting moment. We'll have to wait and see. But to me, that it's these two characters who I really, really didn't know their names until about halfway through the season. I wasn't paying the most attention to them until I realized that they were probably important, and that is where most of the suspense is coming from, is what's going to happen in this confrontation between Mare and these two characters. Which of the brothers is going to end up on top, and will it even matter once Mare shows up? But speaking of tension, I think that the moment in this episode that had the most tension for me was the scene where they intercut Dylan tracking down Jess with Carrie trying to take care of Drew and falling asleep as the child was in the tub with the water filling. I thought that was really quite a nice payoff for the moment earlier where Helen had been with Carrie trying to help her and showing her how to give him a bath and showing her how to take care of him. And I have to admit, the show has done a nice job of fleshing out the character of Carrie, because at the beginning, I really, really just felt frustrated at her for wanting to take Drew from Mare. But as the story has continued, you see this person who really, really wants to be a part of her child's life. She's made mistakes in the past and she's done bad things, but you see her this episode choosing not to take drugs in order to be able to have a relationship with her son so that she has a shot at custody. And you see her beating herself, wearing herself to the bone so that she can, have the money that she needs to possibly provide a life for Drew. And you just see how worn down she is in this moment where she falls asleep next to the tub. It's something I think a lot of parents could relate to. So kudos to the showrunners for making Carrie into someone that we can sympathize with even a little bit after we know what she did in the past. But this scene, I have a really hard time, since I have kids, with scenes where children are in danger. I felt like Drew was going to be okay, because I was like, I don't think they have time to deal with the death of a child in the next episode. I feel like that would be something that would pretty much push every other element of the plot underwater, not to make a pun. So to me, I was pretty sure he was going to be okay, but I just felt enormous tension during this scene. And I think, definitely this is going to be something that has a impact on Carrie's thinking on whether or not she can actually take care of Drew. But I was honestly very impressed that in an episode that was so chock full of clues and mystery boxes and those types of elements, that we had time to show Mare's emotional journey some more, to have this scene with her in the psychiatrist's office, where at first I asked, what are they doing? Don't they realize this is the second to the last episode? Do we really have time for her to have therapy sessions? I want to know what's going on. But I think that these moments are important to the show. I think that they help to anchor it. And I have felt that it was a relief to me and refreshing that they've managed to keep at least some of these moments as the show got more immersed in the mystery and what's going on with that aspect. I think that it was insightful that Mare has potentially not grieved her son that died adequately, that she's kind of not allowed herself to really experience those emotions. And we see Siobhan this episode, that there's this distance between her and her mother that seems to have come from the fact that she feels her mother hasn't grieved her brother enough. And we finally see the moment where Mare and Siobhan arrive home and find their brother and son's body up in the attic, and the tragedy for these characters. And I feel like this is going to play into the final outcome. I think that perhaps some of the reason Mare has been unwilling to be kind towards Carrie is because she, in some sense, holds her responsible for what happened to her son. And I think that as she grieves properly, as she allows herself to grieve, perhaps that relationship can be salvaged. I think that there's a good chance that Carrie is going to, ask for Mare's help with Drew and say, I can't really take care of him by myself, but I want to be in his life. I think there's a good chance that that's the ultimate outcome. And hopefully Mare choosing to actually remember her son and to grieve for him properly and what he would have wanted, I think that that could help her to make the right decision. I do feel that for an episode that had, a very explicit conversation about not taking adequate time to grieve, the fact that there was so little time devoted to the death of Zabel troubled me. I really liked this character. I thought he had, a very welcome presence in the show. And really the only scene that we got was the scene where Mare got an all too obvious slap from Zabel's mother for showing up at her doorstep and, saying things about her son, which Mare should have seen coming, really. I mean, she knows this woman doesn't like her, and Zabel is no longer around to keep the mother on her best behavior. But the moment when she came home and Helen comforted her as she had a breakdown, I feel like that was the closest we got to any kind of catharsis for the death of Zabel. I feel like to a large extent, they didn't really deal with it. They just kind of put it in the rear view mirror. And I guess that you could view that as somewhat of a metaphor for how Mare has dealt with her son's death. I don't know that the writers are being that clever, but who knows. So on the whole, I really enjoyed this episode. I think there's a lot of questions that remain to be answered. What did Kenny see, for instance? It seems as though he saw something and that might have been what got him killed. What is Dylan trying to hide? Someone had said that perhaps he's trying to hide the fact that the child is not his child so that his parents can keep custody. But that's not what's going on, because they already know that the child is not his, because they had the DNA test to eliminate that possibility so they could, investigate the case more effectively. So Dylan is not trying to cover that up. He's trying to cover up something else. And is it involvement with John and Billy? Was Aaron involved with John and Billy in their plot? Were they all working together to kidnap girls? We'll have to wait and see. But it's gonna be a thrill ride. Let's leave it at that. But let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know what your theories are, what you think is going on. If I missed anything, ask me about it. Feel free. If you're interested in seeing my upcoming reviews of other shows, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching.